Hello there and welcome to Cansanity. Today we're going to be talking about uranium glass. Now I like to collect dishes. I have several hutches of dishes in my house, and one of the types of dishes that I like to collect is dishes with this green hue. Now any dish that is really old that has this nice green hue to it potentially could have uranium oxide in it. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to determine if the glassware in your cabinet has uranium oxide by first using a Geiger counter, and then I'm going to show you with a black light. So let's get started. Okay, so I've taken out all the dishes that I've collected that I suspect might have uranium in them. And I've invited my daughter to come and speak about uranium glass because she is a physics and math major at McMaster University and just recently did a paper on uranium glass and a presentation. And I'll let her speak about that paper.
Yeah, so the assignment for my class was to write about the most significant radiological source in my life and to calculate the potential dose that I would have received from that. And since I knew my mom collects dishware, I knew that there was some uranium glass in her household. So uranium glass is glassware that was made between the late 1800s and early 1900s. And it gets this nice green tint by the addition of uranium oxide.
That sounds very interesting. Now, is it only in green glass that you're going to find uranium oxide?
No, so some of the more yellow tinted glassware could also contain uranium oxide, although it is less likely than the green ones here. As well as old fiestaware, which is the bright red sort of ceramic or pottery type, was glazed with uranium. And so that's where you get the red color for those ones.
Interesting. Now, is the red glazed ceramic uranium, is that in the same time period as the uranium glass of the green that you might see here?
I'd imagine so, but I didn't talk specifically about fiestaware, so I didn't do a whole lot of research into it. But what happened in the mid-1900s, so around 1940, 1950, is when they stopped production of uranium glass. And it wasn't due to safety concerns, actually. It had more to do with the developments and research that they were doing in nuclear weapons and nuclear energy. They wanted to conserve all the uranium for that rather than have it be put in glassware.
Oh, that sounds like a good way to save the uranium. So now I didn't realize when I bought this glassware that it potentially could have uranium in it. I just love the look of it because it is just so beautiful. It just really glistens like crystal. And so that's why I have so much of it, because I've kind of been collecting it over the years. And so, you know, when I found out that it potentially had uranium in it, I thought I'd like to find out if it does have uranium and how radioactive are these dishes. And so I asked my daughter if she would ask her professor, Dr. Zick, to loan us a Geiger counter. And so he did, and so we're going to now just test the dishes and see just how radioactive they are. Okay, so we've moved the green dishes over to the side and the other dishes that I also want to check over to another table. And as we scan them, we'll move the dishes out over to this side, just keeping them away from the other dishes as we scan them, just so that we don't have any radioactive interference from the other dishes. And so now I'm going to have my daughter explain how the Geiger counter works.
So this is the Geiger counter here, and so it doesn't actually calculate a dose or anything. It just detects the radioactive particles that are hitting it, coming off from a certain source. And so this is where the detection actually happens, and what it is there's a little bit of gas in here, and when a particle comes off and hits the gas, it causes a reaction, which then triggers the meter. Okay, so we're going to turn our Geiger counter on here, And we're going to go to the lowest setting, which if you can see it says times 0.1, and the meter up here has 1K to 6K. And so there's always going to be a little bit of background radiation no matter where you are. And so that's what you're hearing right now and probably what you're seeing with the dial. And I just wanted to demonstrate that if we go up to this bowl here, which is not uranium glass, you see there's no increase in the counter there. It's still picking up just the background radiation. So this is just a normal amount that everybody experiences every day regardless of where they are.
Okay, so let's start with this bowl, this beautiful bowl, and we'll see whether that's radioactive.
So you can see how the meter's going up there. It's getting close to that 5K mark, which means it's hovering actually around more so between the 3K and the 4K. Which means it's getting about 400 counts. So this one is radioactive, but you know, it's just a little amount that's coming off this one here.
Okay, so let's move that aside. And then let's take a look at these beautiful green plates that I have. I have 6 of them.
Yeah, so there's a little spike happening there, but that might just still be background radiation. It doesn't seem to be too consistent. Oh, yeah, actually, yeah, that one's going to be a little bit too. That one's hitting around the 300.
Okay.
Or the background's hitting only around 200. So again, if anything, this one's just a little amount.
Just mildly?
Yeah.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, because I have the same, like I said, 6 of them. Let's just pick another one and just see if there's any difference between one plate to the next.
Well, they're hidden around the same areas, between the 200 and 300 mark there. But again, that's not much at all. So there's a little spike there up to the 400.
Okay, so now just out of curiosity, these are plates, and these are what people would probably serve at one point pie and dessert on. Is it safe to eat off of these plates?
So yeah, it would be, you know, fairly safe to eat off of them. The actual radiation that is coming off of these plates is such a small amount that you see, you know, our background's hitting around 1K to 2K here, which means 100 and 200, and it only goes up at most to the 400 mark. So that's really, in the long run, that's not a lot of radiation. If anything, it's just going to irradiate the food that's on it. It's not going to ever cause the food to be radioactive or anything. It's only when you get to those higher doses that you should be more concerned. The other thing you would want to worry about is if you scratch the plate or chipped the plate or broke it up somehow and actually ingested a little bit of that glass, you don't want to have the uranium in your system because then it is dangerous.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, let's move on to a larger bowl. This probably was a bowl that someone served salad in at some point.
So see, now that one's actually going past the 100 scale, so we're gonna have to go up into the thousands here. So this one has quite a lot of uranium in it. It's really setting off the meter here. So you can see it's hovering right around the 1000 mark here, and because I changed the scale dial down here, that actually is hitting 1000 counts. Yeah, so this one probably contains a lot of uranium oxide.
So maybe not one I would like to put my salad in, even though you're saying that I can't pick up radioactive material with my salad. It still has a lot more uranium in it than the plates.
Yeah, and so interesting thing about that actually is that in the early 1900s, around 1901, they actually more heavily regulated this uranium glass. So the pieces that have the most uranium oxide are actually the older pieces from the 1800s. So this bowl is probably actually pretty old.
That's interesting. So that's a collectible then. Okay, so now let's try this one here. This is not as bright as the others, so I suspect that this one doesn't have uranium.
Let me change the dial back to the 0.1 setting there. Yeah, so see, this one's not going anything over the background radiation that we would expect. You get a little spike every now and again, but again, that's just the normal with background radiation.
Okay, so now I have a smaller version of the large bowl, just to see that whether this one goes over 1,000, it's a smaller bowl compared to the large one. And it looks like it's made the same, so let's just see.
Yeah, so that one we're getting a little bit off, but it doesn't, despite looking like it's made similarly, it doesn't appear to be all that radioactive. So uranium glass can contain anywhere from 2 to 25% uranium. So those smaller blips that we're getting are probably more so the ones that are closer to that 2%.
Okay, so this is a pretty safe bowl to use then.
Yeah, that one I wouldn't worry too much about.
There. Okay, so I have a small bowl here. It's quite unique. I used to call this depression glass. Now, if it has uranium in it, I'll be calling it uranium glass.
Oh yeah, so that one there is definitely also radioactive. You can see it's really spiking the meter. Hanging around the 500 to 600 mark there. I'm just curious, see if we'll go up one setting there and see. Oh yeah, it's going, it's under 1,000, but it's enough to trigger the counter on the 1,000 scale. So
Wow.
that one's pretty radioactive actually.
Yeah, for such a small bowl, you wouldn't think that it would be as radioactive. Okay, so now I also have a candy dish that people would have put candy in. Children would have eaten out of this, so I'm just going to take the lid off for Matt, for my daughter.
This one is also radioactive. It's on a smaller scale though. And you can see too, it does have less of that, oh, spoke too soon, it's really spiking there. Yeah, no, that one is, yeah, that one's pretty radioactive. It's not hitting the 1,000 mark quite, but it's hovering almost halfway there. I'm getting kind of close to it at some parts.
Okay, I have a question. If I go and I put this lid on this dish, and there's all this radioactivity happening, let's say in this dish, is it building up? And then if I open the lid on the dish, does that is that a problem?
Well, the actual radiation from the uranium itself doesn't really build up, but uranium does have a decay chain, and so it does have daughter particles or daughter products that also are radioactive and would also produce radiation. And one of those, I believe, is radon, which can build up over time if it's in an enclosed space. Your candy dish, though, does have the, gaps around it, so there is a chance that some of it's gonna just flow out anyways. But if you were to put something in a sealed area for a long period of time, the radon would build up.
Interesting. Okay, so we only have a couple more pieces here, so I'm just going to continue on. This is my favorite bowl. It's so pretty.
It's quite green.
It's quite green, and if anything looks like it's radioactive, this is one of those bowls.
Yeah, I see some spikes already just getting close to it. Yeah, see that's already past the 100 scale there. You can see it's getting close to the 2K mark at some points. You can hear the meter going off like crazy there. Definitely over the 1,000 mark. And And at some points it was getting close to the 2000 there. So that one, yeah, again, contains a lot of uranium oxide there.
So would you think that that maybe is a bowl that contains about 25% then?
Yeah, that one would probably be one that contains closer to the 25% mark.
Wow.
And again, with that higher concentration means that it is an older piece.
Okay, so now I just have a couple more bowls. This one, I don't think we did this one yet. This is just a little salad bowl that I have.
Quite a pretty edge on it. Change that back to the 0.1. This one looks like it's just getting the right one. There are little peaks here and there, but it does seem to be closer to the background radiation than it does to being actually radioactive itself. So I think this one, if it does contain any, it's a fairly safe amount.
Okay. So, and now I have this green Pyrex bowl, which I would suspect will not be radioactive because Pyrex is what you use to mix all your batters in, but let's see.
Yeah, it does have some of the same coloration there. But yeah, no, you can see this is just the regular background radiation right now that's triggering it. There's nothing radioactive about this bowl.
Okay, and just one more green item. I have this little bowl, and I just thought, well, that's pretty neon looking. So let's just see if that's
quite green. Yeah, so no, this doesn't appear to be setting off the meter too much. Again, it looks more like just close to the background radiation. So my guess would this would actually be a newer piece that was made to sort of mimic the look of uranium glass.
Interesting. Okay, so we're gonna switch out the dishes that we have on the counter, and we're gonna see if there's any uranium glass in some of the other colored glasses. Okay, so I moved some of my the dishes onto the counter, and I picked dishes that I suspect are quite old and have a good shimmer to them. Now, when Maddie did her presentation and told us about it, she talked about yellow glass and the Fiesta red look. But I thought, you know what, since we have this Geiger counter, let's check these other dishes out as well. So we're going to get started with that. We're going to start with this beautiful fruit dish that I have.
Turn that one on there again. So yeah, it does kind of have that yellowish color near the base. You can see maybe down there. It doesn't seem to be setting off the counter any more than it would with the background radiation. So yeah, this doesn't seem that it is radioactive at all to me.
Okay. So that's good. I put that over here. And then I had these, these might look familiar to a lot of you guys out there. My mom had glasses, something like that. So I thought, well, let's just check these out.
Yeah, so again, it doesn't seem to be setting it off any more than it would with the background radiation. So these don't seem radioactive either.
Good to know. Okay, just move those over here. And then another beautiful red dish that I have.
So it's very unlikely that any sort of red glass here would be radioactive or contain uranium, because it is colored a different way. We're getting little spikes, but I do think that that is just from the background radiation. I don't think that this dish is radioactive either.
Okay, well that's good to know. Red is my favorite color for dishes, so I'll stick to red. So now I have these plates, and I know that they're old. I thought, well, it's got that red, you know, solid color on top of that. Well, let's just check those out as well.
Yeah, so this does look a lot like what the Fiesta ware would have looked like, and so with that, it is actually a uranium glaze over top that makes the red-orange color.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, whatever these guys are, they don't appear to be radioactive.
And the last dish that I wanted her to check was this yellow dish, and this is what I would also have referred to as depression glassware.
Yeah, so with the yellow color, it could be Vaseline glass, which actually would also contain a little bit of uranium. So that one, we do get a little bit of a spike, especially near the more, the thicker pieces of the dish where the stands are. But it's not that much over the background radiation. So again, I would say that this is probably not something you really have to worry about having in your house.
Okay. So now, just because we have some pieces that were really highly radioactive, I thought let's at the end here just show again just how much that Geiger counter goes off with these dishes.
So you can hear all the beeping there from the counter. This was the most radioactive one that we found. Yeah, again with this guy, you can hear all those beeping. Yeah, so these guys are probably the two most radioactive pieces that you have.
Okay, so now that we've used the Geiger counter to demonstrate just that it does pick up the radiation, we're going to now show you another way that you can tell if the dishes in your cabinet have uranium glass in them. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how you can determine if you have some uranium glass when you don't have access to a Geiger counter. And the way that you're going to do that is you're going to use a black light. So I have a black light here in my treble light, and so we're going to shut off the lights and we're going to show you what happens. Okay, so I'm holding it over top of the dish, the small dish that really set the counter off, and you can see that it illuminates, the dish illuminates. And I'm going to move over to the candy dish, and you can see that that also lights up. Now we're going to move to the dish that had one of the highest counts, and take a look at that. Look how much that dish illuminates. And so even if I move this light source away from the dish, you can still see it. And so that is showing you that that's uranium glass in there. And so we have the other dish here that also had a high count. And so, you know, that dish illuminates quite well as well, but not as much as this one in the center. And so just to show you that it's not the light, the black light on the dish that's causing that effect on the just green glassware, I'm going to hold the light over top of the Pyrex dish at the end here that didn't show any signs of radioactivity. And so that's this dish here. And you can see that that dish, it's green, but it doesn't light up the way the others do. And so why is that?
Well, it's actually as simple as the UV light that is coming off of the black light is enough to excite the electrons in the uranium, and that gets reflected back at us as green light.
Cool. Okay, so now that we've demonstrated that we have some radioactivity coming from these dishes, what do I have to be concerned about that, having these in the house? What does that really mean?
Yeah, so for my paper, I actually did calculate the dose that you would receive annually from having these glasses in your house. And what I found was that by having these glasses in your house, you get a dose of about 0.21 millisieverts per year. Now the RCRP's annual public dose limit is actually 20 millisieverts per year. So as you can see, that's a pretty small fraction. And you can even equate that to something that people would experience yearly, which is flying. So if you were to fly from the East Coast to the West Coast across the United States 6 times, that would be the same amount of dose that you would get from having these dishes in your house.
Interesting.
every year.
Interesting. Is there another source of radiation that you can compare it to that you get, let's say X-rays?
Yeah, so the average dose that you would receive from having a chest x-ray is about 0.1 millisieverts. So again, our number was 0.21, so that would be the equivalent of having 2 chest x-rays in 1 year.
Interesting. So wasn't that interesting? I didn't realize how much radioactivity I was bringing into my house by collecting all these dishes. So I'd like to thank my daughter for helping me with this video, and I'd really like to thank Dr. Zick and McMaster University for lending us the Geiger counter. So if you suspect that you have some uranium glass in your house, pick up a black light, and if it glows, then you have some dishes with uranium oxide. And if you find something, please leave a comment and let me know what you find. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're enjoying the Cansanity videos, please subscribe. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Have a great day.